Hey, deserving listeners, it's time to continue watching 90 Day Fiancé. Let's watch the show.
I went for Jovi, don't leave me alone. He just always disappears somewhere. I told him 10 times, you need to be with me. This is about us. He do whatever he wants. I know what I deserve, and why I need that? I don't need that. Where is it, Jovi?
Okay, this is actually a common complaint between partners where you go to a party and you don't really know that many people and you don't want to be left alone. So it's pretty common conflict. Yara doesn't know everyone, maybe not being allowed into certain circles of conversation. Maybe she's not that interested. She might be tired or whatever. And Jovi, meanwhile, all his family's there, all his friends are there, and on one hand, he really wants to do the rounds and make sure he respects everyone. That's often on people's minds. It's like, well, I want to make sure that everyone who came, that I socialize with them at least for a little bit of time. But on the other hand, I don't want to leave Yara alone. So how do you manage that? So there's often some conflict there. That's not the problem. The problem is, how do you communicate about it? Let's see how they do.
Jovi. I told you to come here. You would be here. I'm talking to you from behind.
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Like, you should hear me, or sometimes this come to me, or you just forget about me and you hang out on the bar.
I'm not forgetting about you.
There.
What, this way?
Which way?
You want to talk to me?
So this could be a volatile situation, given that I believe Jovi is intoxicated at this point. He drinks a lot, so he probably has a high tolerance, and he might be intoxicated a lot of times, but he seems particularly intoxicated right now. That isn't usually a recipe for success, but we'll see. Hopefully they can work it out. They seem to be having a good time overall tonight.
Yara, where's the party going? Are you having fun or not?
Did you have fun, Jovi?
I had fun.
Oh, Jovi had fun. Because this was party for Jovi to meet them friends and drink with them together. Because that's what Jovi did. Even your friends comes to me and say, this is party for who? For you and Jovi, or just for Jovi's drinking?
Okay, so like I said, there's nothing wrong with Yara saying, wow, I feel like I'm being kind of ignored here. But often what people will say is, well, these are all his friends and family, and he likes to drink, and so I'm probably going to lose touch with him for a little bit of time. Now, you can certainly complain, but to be sarcastic about it, to be with that tone. Now, if the two of them had had a conversation beforehand that established some kind of routine, and maybe they did, but we didn't see it, and he broke the rules that they had established, then yeah, she could justifiably be very upset with him in this moment. The other thing she seems to be upset about is that he is drinking. We don't know if they've had conversations about his drinking yet. From what we've seen, it appears as though he's like, look, I drink, and you're just going to have to deal with it. And from her perspective, she's like, I don't like the fact that you drink all the time. Okay, so they both have the right, technically, to have their point. He can say, look, I like to drink, and you can't stop me. And she could say, I don't like it when you drink because of X, Y, and Z. They both can have that they're both entitled to that. How do they work that out, though? How do they communicate about that? How do they find some negotiated space, or what do they do with that? From Yara's position, it would be totally rational if she were just like, I don't want to be with a guy who drinks as much as he does. He's going to have to slow down. Okay, how do you talk about that? So far, we've seen her say, you're drinking all the time, and there's something wrong with you, that kind of communication. And as I've said before, if you want to help someone who has a problem with alcohol, shaming them doesn't usually work, because shame is what drives the addiction in the first place. I don't know if Jovi has a problem, but we certainly see some red flags for that. We would have to talk to him and people around him to really know, and the show doesn't give us enough data for that. He certainly seems to be drinking a lot. He seems to often have a drink in hand, and we've heard from Yara that she wants him to cut back. But he's a grown man. He's of age. He can drink if he wants to. It's his choice. And if that's a deal breaker between the two of them, then they need to think about whether or not they are compatible as a couple. if you want to talk with someone about their drinking, you sit down. You just say, hey, I see you drinking a lot, and I just have some things to get off my chest about how it affects me. You always want to return it to how it affects you. You don't want to say, you drink too much, because that's debatable, especially in the mind of someone who has a problem, because they're going to go into denial about it. So you want to talk about how it affects you. You say, so when you drink this much, it affects me because this is what happens, and I don't like the way it affects me. I don't like the way your drinking affects me. You're perfectly within your rights to talk about that, because your feelings are your feelings, and you're entitled to having your feelings and having your reactivity to something. And then from there, you can have conversations. Hopefully, the person will say, oh, I didn't know that my drinking did that to you. And then it gives them a chance to think about what they want to do with that. Having said that, the road to recovery is long and complicated and with lots of bumps in the road. And to expect someone, if he does have a problem, to stop using right away would be unrealistic. It's possible, but not likely. If Yara did everything perfect, I would guess that he would be on a 5 to 10 year track in terms of his recovery from what might be a problem with alcohol. I don't know if he has a problem, but that's typical. It takes a long time to really admit you have a problem. It takes a long time to actually go to meetings. It takes a long time. It takes a long time to develop friends that don't drink. It takes a long time to extract alcohol out of your life. It takes a long time to get a good sponsor. It takes a long time to work on your emotions and know how to cope with things without the substance. And so it'd be a long time. And you can't condense 5 to 10 years of recovery into you're a drunk, there's something wrong with you. That doesn't usually work. I get it, but when you understand addiction, it's not usually fixed by that kind of stuff. Now, from Jovi's perspective, maybe for him, he's like, look, I'm going to a party. All my friends and family are going to be there. Of course I'm going to drink. Everyone else is drinking, and that's what this is. And I'm going to be socializing. And if you want to partake in the socializing, then, partake in the socializing. So, again, it's not right or wrong. As a therapist, as a couples therapist, I don't see situations like this and go, oh, Yara's right and Jovi is wrong. I don't see it that way. What I see are two people coming to the table, trying to do the best that they can and maybe making some mistakes. And so what's happening here? Well, Jovi, once again, is not intuiting what Yara wants. He seems to have a pattern of that. So we would want to help him with that. How do we help him with that? Well, we don't help him with that by yelling at him and shaming him, particularly when he's intoxicated. He might not even remember this in the morning. We want to wait until he's sober and have a conversation. Hey, I have a concern that you don't notice my feelings. It really hurts my feelings when you do that. Then that gives the other person, Jovi, the opportunity to care and to change his behavior. Yelling at him probably just leads him to this road of like, she's crazy, there's something wrong with her. At the very least, he's going to distance himself to protect himself, and that's something that you don't want. And then from Jovi's perspective, he could say like, hey, I like to drink and I like to hang out with my friends, and I realize you don't have a lot of friends yet, and I'm really trying to balance that out. I love you, and I also love my family and my friends, and I'm having a hard time kind of navigating that sometimes. Maybe we could help each other out in this way or something. There's a way that they can talk to each other and come together, and I'm guessing it's not going to happen here.
What was, Joey? Can you explain to me? This was about you, everything, or about us?
I'm over this.
You even got standing near to me, and the first time I'm that mad on you, like today.
Yeah. Welcome to pregnancy, guys.
Shut up.
My God. Oh, no. What's my scale of yikes? What's the highest? I think it's like a 3 or something. It's definitely a 2.9 right there. Now, he's intoxicated, like I said. I don't expect his brain to be quite working, but this is consistent with what he says when he's not this drunk. He might be frequently intoxicated when he's on the show. Who knows? But there's a lot of sexism and misogyny in that statement. As I've been talking about already, this discounting of women's feelings during their hormonal times is a long-standing way of the patriarchy to take control over women. When women speak up, oh, it's their period, oh, it's their hormones, not actual valid anger and complaints. Now, I will say that both of them are not being functional. Yara could approach this in a much different way, in the way that I said earlier, and at a much different time. So I'm not saying that he should turn to her and say, oh my God, you're so right. But there's so many different ways he could respond, even if he did think she was being unreasonable. He could say something like, you know what, I'm really intoxicated right now, and so I'm not going to do a good job, and so can we talk about this tomorrow? That'd be one option. Another option is to be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Yeah, I got caught up talking to my friends. I'm a little drunk right now. I got it. I drank a little bit too much. I'm really sorry, honey. I'm sorry. And I get that you feel like I was leaving you behind, and I'm sorry about that. I didn't mean to. I'll tell you, it just kind of, one thing led to another, and I can, can we hug it out? Or that's another way. Instead, he doesn't look at her, and he says, welcome to pregnancy. People say these kinds of statements often. I don't know about Jovi, but they often will say these kinds of statements because they know that at least a portion of society is behind them when they say this. They know that a portion of society supports them as they put a human being down based on their identity somehow. You're just a woman. Oh, you're having hormones. It's a way, if he was the first person to say that, it would have a lot less power. But since there's so many people that believe this, when he says that, it has so much more weight. And for Yara, it can feel so much more hurtful and so much more oppressive because she knows that it's not just his weird idea, that there's a whole set of human beings who absolutely would support the ideas that he's propagating right now. And it is very, very oppressive and very, very defeating and very demoralizing. And if you keep this up, eventually someone just is crushed under that pressure and will become depressed or demoralized or empty on a certain level, just trying to survive through misogyny and patriarchy. And this doesn't bode well, but it is very consistent with the way he talks about her, that this is his attitude. Where did he get it? His culture, his family, the rest of society, all the above. The place where he works, who knows? I don't know. But this idea that women are inferior, they're controlled by their hormones, they don't know what they're talking about, they're always flying off the handle. And look at me, I'm just a victim of like women and their problems. We've seen this stuff for centuries, maybe, at least in my lifetime. I've seen this often, and it's just got to stop, people. Like, think outside the box. Like, just, there's nothing wrong, Jovi, with saying, wow, I feel like I'm really being yelled at about something that I don't deserve to be yelled at. Okay, you can say that. But to invoke misogyny to shut someone up is not okay.
Do you think Watch will hold you?
No, of course.
Do you think the girl like me deserves somebody like that?
He probably doesn't deserve somebody so good, but okay.
Of course I deserve somebody better. Because I'm smart, beautiful, and all this stuff. I'm just done with you. I even don't want to say nothing.
So I feel bad for both of them. Yara obviously is hurt, and she feels alone. She's in a foreign country. She doesn't know anyone. She's pregnant. She probably doesn't know what the future holds for her. She probably just wants to go back home and be with her people, and I feel bad for her. And I also feel bad for Jovi. It can perhaps be more difficult to sympathize with Jovi, but I feel bad for him too. People often come across like they don't care when they deeply, deeply care. And I think Jovi is one of those people. I think he really is desperate for closeness and really desperate to come across like he's the sane one because of insecurities, is my guess. And I think he's struggling quite a bit. Usually people will drink chronically because of deep pain and anxiety. And so I'm just going to take a guess and say that that's down there. I don't know. So I feel bad for the two of them. I really do. And they've been here before. I don't see them breaking up over this, but I also don't see them recovering from this. I see them sweeping it under the rug and returning to this again in the future and having it be worse. That's usually how conflicts like these work out, without any intervening thing like therapy or some major shift in the way that you feel about your emotions and communicate them. That the conflict usually escalates, and that's what we've seen in this season. So unless they go to therapy, I suspect the next fight we see from the two of them will be even worse.
No, I don't care. Whatever.
He absolutely doesn't care. Because where is Jovi's around the friends? This is matter that he's with Yara. or Yara is pregnant, or Yara needs something. Doesn't matter. No.
How are you feeling hearing this?
It sucks. I don't want to hear it anymore. I'm over it.
Tak go.
So this is setting up a difficult dynamic between the two of them, where she's identifying alcohol and friends as a interference to her happiness. But that's not the way I would frame it. I would frame it in the way that they talk to each other and his perhaps sexism. I can't really know for sure if that's what's happening, but there seems to be some signs of that. So if those things changed, if they were able to communicate better, if they were able to know their feelings better and communicate in a vulnerable way better, then he could still potentially drink, possibly, but he could definitely have his friends. And so the friends and the alcohol are really secondary problems to their fundamental problem, which is the ability for both of them to talk about their hurt in a vulnerable way that is non-accusatory, in a way that actually invites people into a constructive conversation. Then they can actually do that. I don't think they've ever done it on the show in terms of what we've seen, and I suspect they probably don't do it behind the scenes. I don't know. I do suspect, though, that they do have intimacy away from the cameras, because from what we've seen on the camera, there's been almost no intimacy and no connection and no warmth. So I just have to assume that away from the cameras that they do have warmth and affection and they do listen to each other. Because otherwise, why would they be in a relationship? I mean, they're just so contemptuous when they're on camera, but maybe that's because the show is only showing us those most contemptuous moments. But yeah, I mean, I feel bad for both of them, and I really hope that they're able to have a sit down tomorrow in a mature way, in a non-triggering way, and in a comprehensive way, in a way that really identifies their feelings and they take care of each other. Jovi says, "I'm sorry for this, this, and this. I truly am. I didn't mean to hurt you, but I see how I hurt you." And for Yara to say, "I'm sorry that I was very accusatory towards you. I should have been nicer about it, and thank you for acknowledging my feelings. I really need you to pay more attention to me. And the things that you're doing right now are worrying me a lot, because if we're going to have a family together, it looks like you're just going to be one of those a-hole dads, husbands who just are never around and expect me to do everything, and that really worries me. How do you feel? Is that what your plan is, or can we have an open line of communication so that that doesn't happen?" But we haven't seen that tone of conversation between the two of them. What we've seen is screaming and yelling and put-downs and discounting each other, which just creates this vicious cycle of contempt and anger and contempt and anger and contempt and anger.
Next time on 90 Day.
All right, well, that does it for that episode of Psychology in Seattle. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself, because you deserve it. You really, really do.